You don't need any more signs. He's already placed it on your heart. He's given you the favor. He's given you everything you need. All you need now is wisdom on how to execute. Hey guys, my name is Dami and I am a faith-based content creator with a passion for helping women, college students, and believers like myself grow in our walk with the Lord. So let's just be honest. You know the Lord is calling you, and maybe it's not making a YouTube channel or content creation. There is something in your life right now that God is calling you to do. He's putting the nudge in you. He's telling you, like, let's go. It's time. And like I said, you don't need any more confirmations, because honestly, some people will waste an entire lifetime trying to receive confirmations and trying to see, okay, I just need one more sign, God, to tell me like this was what you wanted me to do. But God has specifically chosen you, and all he needs from you is an uncertain yes, and he will take care of the rest. So today I'm going to give you 3 cheat codes that are going to help you walk out in confidence in your God-given purpose. So first of all, we have to address the fears. I'm sure at this point, whatever it is that God is calling you to do, you're probably terrified. There's probably something that's holding you back. For me, when I started this YouTube channel, I was absolutely terrified. I mean, I thought about every single scenario that could go wrong. Like, what if this person finds my YouTube channel and they judge me? What if this person thinks this of me? Or what if my mom, or I thought about every single thing. But the number one thing that has helped me walk out in my purpose, even though still to this day I have my fears, is getting in my word. You got to get in your Bible. And this is of course for that encouragement piece and to get direction through sound doctrine. But what I really emphasize this for is to learn from the people who came before you. The truth is, you are not the first chosen one. Okay, I hate to break it to you, but it's the truth. But that's a good thing, because now you have the opportunity to learn from other chosen ones and learn from their experiences, learn from their failures, their mistakes. But above all, you can learn how they walked out in obedience despite their fears, because we know they're human too. They had fears just like we do. So it's a great way to learn. So a really good piece of advice that has helped me learn from those who came before me and read the Bible is reading it with a little more imagination. So I'm sure we're all familiar with stories from Sunday school, and even now we may do devotions, but my encouragement to you is to go a little deeper than that, to maybe stop taking things at face value and just reading the story, but actually try to imagine yourself in that context. Imagine what things could have been like in that day and age, and if you were in their shoes themselves. So for example, with the story of Noah, we know that God commanded him to build an ark, and we know that he did it. He was obedient, he built the ark, and he was saved, him and his family. So great, we all know this story, but now let's go a little deeper than that, because Noah was not only asked to build an ark, but he was asked to do it in a time where there had been no rain. This is like basically desert land, and people around him other than his family are completely sinning, and they're probably looking at him like he's crazy, right? So just imagine what Noah must have felt, and the fears he might have experienced, the thoughts he would have had. I know if I was in that position, I'd be like, God, what are people gonna think of me? You're telling me to build a boat in the middle of a desert. They're gonna look at me like I'm crazy. They're gonna look at me like I'm a lunatic. And even my family, you're telling me to stop tending to like our house and our livestock here, and you're asking me to have them invest into this boat when we clearly don't see any rain. Like, I'm sure he had a bunch of fears and probably faced a lot of criticism. People probably laughed at him when they walked by and saw what he was doing. Do you know what that must have been like? Like, I can't even imagine. But despite the fears that he must have felt, and other chosen ones that God has anointed, they still walked out in obedience. Think about David, who was a shepherd boy, and God told him to slay a giant. Like, what? How crazy do you think that must have felt like? But the common theme that I'm trying to get at, that all of God's chosen ones had in common, comes from Proverbs 3. In verses 5 through 6, it says, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways submit to him, and he will make your path straight." So despite the uncertainty that God's chosen ones must have felt when he gave them commands that seemed completely out of the ordinary, they were all still able to successfully and confidently walk out in their purposes. And it was mainly because they weren't reliant on what they were seeing and trying to use their own logic to justify. They couldn't rely on their own understanding, because when God told Noah to build an ark in the middle of a desert, he couldn't use his logic to try to justify, God, there's been no rain for this long, so the probability of there being rain or a flood is low. No, he didn't do that. Instead, he focused more on being obedient to what God had told him to do, what he knew that God had placed in his heart to do and gave him a command to do. And he relied on God to give him direction on how to execute execute it. So when it comes to you walking out in your own purpose, it's first important for you to accept the fact that you're human and it's normal for you to have fears. Oftentimes what God is calling us to do seems so scary, seems so uncertain and unrealistic in our actual lives, and that's okay. So accept the fact that you have fears, and sometimes it helps getting specific with what are you really scared of. So I challenge you to ask yourself that and try to answer honestly. What are you really scared of? What is holding you back, and what are the voices in your head saying? Comment down below what those fears are, and let's start getting specific about it. The second piece of wisdom that I want to give you is to get used to your daily bread. Most of the time we've gotten used to certainty in our lives. We've gotten accustomed to controlling a lot of the aspects in our lives, knowing what our tomorrow looks like, or even planning out our days. But like I've said in so many other videos, when you're truly walking out in the will of God, you're not going to have all the answers all the time. When God says he is a lamp unto your feet and the light unto your path, that means that he is guiding you step by step. And you're not going to have the entire staircase at once. You're going to have one stair at a time. But where we can find peace in that is in Psalms 32:8, when God says that he has his eye on us all the time. So even though we may face the uncertainty and we don't really know what's going on, God already wrote our plan out for us and he already knows our path. So at this point, what we were meant to do is to trust him and to lean on him. And this is also going to transform our idea of productivity. When we're going about our lives, we probably think our most productive days are when we get things done, we're checking off the boxes, crossing things out on the planner. But when we're moving on God's time, sometimes his idea of productivity is simply us finding rest that day, or us failing that day and going through a hardship or experience that's going to help us in the longer run. So at this point, just be prepared for your faith to be tested, because you may feel like you haven't gotten enough done, but really you might be exactly where God needs you to be. God may have wanted you to only fail that day or to get a few things done, and that is okay. Remember that he has his eye on you at all times and that your plan is already written. It is just a matter of you walking out in that and believing him and trusting him. And lastly, this piece of encouragement is probably the most important. You need to turn the voices down. Like we talked about, it's normal to have fears and doubts about walking in your purpose, but sometimes it is so important to know that there are things in your life that are directly feeding that, and that can come from specific people, media, or even yourself. But we got to turn it all down, because the only voice that we really need to be hearing in this moment when you are getting ready to walk out in your purpose is God's voice. So what do you need to do to hear God more clearly and turn down those voices? For me, it was doing a deep dive and a deep detox on my Instagram and my social media platforms. I realized that social media is a great tool, and it's not something that I necessarily have to get rid of completely, but I had to cleanse some things out, because there were definitely a lot of people that I was still following from like middle school, high school, and even college now, and they were just dead weight. So I went through my Instagram one day, and it took forever, but we got it done, and I deleted anybody who I felt like I couldn't have an authentic conversation with in person, and if they didn't meet that threshold, then I just unfollowed them and I removed them as a follower as well. So maybe it's not Instagram or social media for you. Maybe it's consuming too much TV or secular TV that isn't really helping you walk out in your purpose. Whatever the distraction may be, you got to get honest with yourself, and you have to start turning those voices down. And of course, it's not going to happen overnight. God knows, you're not perfect, and this may take some time, but the point is to get to a place where it's not as difficult to hear God's voice, where you can have that clarity and that peace of mind, and your mind is at a place where it's not juggling a billion things that it's not supposed to. Carrying any extra dead weight with you is only going to hold you back and only going to exhaust you while you're walking out in your purpose. So it's better to just let it go once and for all than to try to keep compromising and trying to keep carrying weight that God doesn't need you to be carrying. So what distractions do you feel like you need to turn the voices down of? Is it people? Is it social media like me? Or is it this idea that you have for yourself that you're struggling to let go of? And be honest about it. There's no shame at all, and I encourage you to comment down below. Let me know what it is. But like I said, God knows you're human, and it's not going to happen overnight. So give yourself grace, be realistic, and lean on God for your strength to be able to do what you got to do to walk out in your purpose in confidence. So that is all I have for you today, and let me remind you one more time that you do not need any more confirmations. I know that there are fears associated with you walking out in your purpose. There may be distractions right now, and there may be uncertainty, but that is all okay, and that is all expected. God knows that we are not perfect, and all he needs from us is an uncertain yes. So be confident, be courageous, and walk out in your purpose today. I hope you enjoyed today's message, and thank you for watching today's video. I'll see you later.